Have you ever grabbed an Irish whiskey expecting that famous silky finish, only to end up with something that tastes like watered-down grain alcohol wearing a shamrock costume? Americans buy more than 5 million cases of Irish whiskey every year. Yet, few realize just how wide the quality gap truly is. So, today we're ranking 15 Irish whiskey brands from absolute worst to genuinely exceptional, judging flavor, craftsmanship, heritage, and real drinkability. From bottom-shelf pretenders to bottles worth every dollar. It's time to settle this once and for all. Irish whiskey's history stretches back over 1,000 years. Once the world's favorite spirit, it nearly disappeared during Prohibition and political upheaval before roaring back in recent decades. Triple distillation gives Irish whiskey its trademark smoothness, but smooth without character is just expensive water. By the end of this list, you'll know exactly which bottles deserve your pour, and which deserve a permanent spot on the shelf. 15. Kilbeggan. Kilbeggan loves to remind you it's historic. And yes, the distillery traces its roots back to 1757, making it one of the oldest names in Irish whiskey. But heritage only matters if the liquid lives up to it, and Kilbeggan sadly doesn't. The aroma drifts in faintly sweet with touches of vanilla and grain, but it's so timid you almost miss it. Take a sip, and the disappointment sets in quickly. A thin, watery whiskey that drinks closer to diluted vodka than anything with age or depth. There's a quick flash of caramel, a hint of oak, and then nothing. The finish vanishes instantly, leaving behind mild warmth and even milder regret. What stings most is the wasted potential. With centuries of history and those old copper pot stills in Tullamore, Kilbeggan should be distinct. Instead, it feels mass-produced, overly softened, and stripped of personality. It's the kind of whiskey poured at a budget wedding, easy to ignore, impossible to remember. To be fair, it works fine in a ginger ale or Irish coffee where you just need something vaguely whiskey-like. But if you're drinking to taste Ireland, this isn't the bottle. It's a ghost of what Kilbeggan could be, coasting on history without delivering flavor. 14. Paddy Irish Whiskey. Paddy Irish Whiskey is the kind of bottle that looks friendly from the start. The label feels welcoming, the price feels even better, and the promise of classic Irish smoothness seems sincere. But once you open it, the charm fades fast. The nose offers light grain, a touch of malt, and a vague sweetness that never fully becomes anything. On the palate, it's aggressively neutral. You get a whisper of honey, some cereal notes, and a quick burst of spice that shows up too late to make a difference. The finish is short, slightly sharp, and leaves you wondering whether you just drank whiskey or lightly flavored ethanol. Historically, Paddy earned its place as a Cork pub staple, a working-class whiskey meant to be easy, affordable, and uncomplicated. And to be fair, it succeeds at that. It's smooth, gentle, and cheap enough for generous pours. But drinkability without character isn't much of a victory in the whiskey world. It's the liquid equivalent of a plain toast, technically serviceable, but far from satisfying. The branding leans heavily on Irish charm and legacy, yet the liquid doesn't support the story. As a mixer, it's fine, inoffensive and easy to hide. But neat or on the rocks, Paddy feels like a polite apology. With similarly priced alternatives offering real flavor, its mediocrity earns it a rightful place near the bottom. 13. Tullamore Dew. Tullamore Dew sits on nearly every liquor store shelf in America, smiling that green-labeled smile and promising Irish authenticity. It's one of the fastest-growing Irish whiskeys globally, and that success comes from one thing: it offends absolutely no one. The aroma is soft, with hints of citrus, vanilla, and light grain. The taste follows predictably. Smooth, slightly sweet, with notes of malt, green apple, and a whisper of spice. The finish is clean, short, and utterly forgettable. It's whiskey designed by committee, engineered to be the least controversial spirit in any bar. What Tullamore Dew does well is consistency. Every bottle tastes exactly the same, which builds trust with casual drinkers who just want something reliable. It mixes beautifully into Irish coffees, highballs, and ginger ale without causing trouble. The triple distillation gives it that signature Irish smoothness, and the blend of pot, still, malt, and grain whiskeys creates balance. But balance without boldness is just boring. There's no funk here, no unexpected notes, nothing that makes you pause mid-sip and reconsider what Irish whiskey can be. The brand's history ties back to Tullamore Town and a distillery rebuilt after a fire in 1829, but you'd never taste that legacy in the glass. It's been so refined and smoothed over that any character got sanded away in the process. Tullamore Dew is the whiskey equivalent of beige wallpaper. Functional, safe, and something you forget about 5 minutes after seeing it. For beginners dipping their toes into Irish whiskey, it's fine. For anyone seeking flavor, complexity, or soul, it's a hard pass. That's why it lands here, stuck in the middle of mediocrity. 12. Kilbeggan Single Grain. Kilbeggan shows up twice on this list because apparently one disappointing expression wasn't enough. The single grain release aims higher than the standard blend, focusing on grain whiskey aged in bourbon barrels. The result is slightly better, but only slightly. The nose opens with vanilla, toffee, and a faint oak presence that actually shows promise. On the palate, you get creamy sweetness, hints of butterscotch, and light spice. The texture is smoother than the standard Kilbeggan, almost silky, which makes it easier to drink. But easier doesn't mean better. The problem with Kilbeggan single grain is that it's trying to be something it's not. Single grain Irish whiskey can be spectacular when done right, offering a lighter, more delicate alternative to pot, still whiskey. But this one tastes like it's scared of committing to a personality. The sweetness dominates without balancing against anything substantial. There's no oak backbone, no complexity, just sugar and ethanol playing nice together. The finish fades quickly, leaving a vague warmth and zero memory. What's most frustrating is the wasted potential. Grain whiskey aged properly in quality casks can develop incredible nuance. Kilbeggan single grain feels rushed, like it hit the minimum age requirement and got bottled before it could develop character. It's drinkable, sure, and it won't ruin a cocktail. But for the price, you're better off grabbing something with actual flavor. This is the whiskey you'd bring to a party where nobody's really paying attention. Functional but forgettable, smooth but soulless, and ultimately not worth the shelf space. It ranks here because mediocrity, even when slightly improved, is still mediocrity. 11. Teeling Small Batch. Teeling Small Batch arrived with big promises. The Teeling family, legendary in Irish whiskey circles, broke away to create their own distillery in Dublin. And this rum cask finished blend was their opening statement. The nose immediately announces itself. Tropical fruit, vanilla, and a sweetness that borders on cloying. The rum cask influence is unmistakable, bringing notes of banana, caramel, and brown sugar. On the tongue, it's smooth and fruity, almost too fruity, with the whiskey character struggling to fight through the rum's sweetness. The finish is medium length, warm, but leaves you wondering if you just drank whiskey or rum with a whiskey chaser. Here's the thing about Teeling Small Batch. It's not bad, it's just confused. The rum cask finishing adds novelty, creating a flavor profile that stands out on a crowded shelf, but novelty doesn't equal quality. The underlying whiskey doesn't have enough backbone to balance the rum influence, so instead of complexity, you get sweetness masking young spirit. It's the whiskey equivalent of loud cologne, grabbing attention but not necessarily in a good way. For casual drinkers exploring Irish whiskey beyond Jameson, Teeling Small Batch offers something different. It's conversation starter whiskey, the bottle you bring to show you've done some research. But serious whiskey fans see through it quickly. The rum casks feel like a shortcut, covering up what should be the star: quality Irish spirit. When a whiskey relies this heavily on finishing to create character, it raises questions about what's underneath. Teeling Small Batch ranks here because it's trying too hard to be interesting instead of just being good. It's whiskey with training wheels, fun for a minute, but ultimately something you outgrow. 10. Jameson Black Barrel. Jameson Black Barrel is what happens when the world's best-selling Irish whiskey decides to aim higher. Charred bourbon barrels give this expression a richer, fuller profile than standard Jameson. The nose opens with toasted oak, vanilla, and butterscotch, immediately announcing more ambition. On the palate, it delivers caramel sweetness balanced against nutty oak, with hints of tropical fruit and baking spice weaving through the middle. The finish is warming and surprisingly long for Jameson, leaving traces of charred wood and brown sugar that actually linger. What pushes Black Barrel into the top 10 is intentionality. This isn't whiskey playing it safe. The double charring of those bourbon barrels adds layers that standard Jameson never approaches. There's actual oak influence here, real barrel character that proves aging and quality wood matters. The mouthfeel is richer, almost creamy, coating your tongue instead of sliding past it. For fans of bourbon who dismissed Irish whiskey as too light, Black Barrel offers a bridge, smooth Irish character with American oak backbone. Is it perfect? No. The youth of the underlying spirit still shows through occasionally, and the sweetness can overwhelm if you're not in the mood for it. But compared to everything below it on this list, Black Barrel represents a genuine leap in quality. It's Jameson showing it can compete in the premium space without losing accessibility. You can sip this neat and actually enjoy it, or drop it into an old-fashioned and watch it hold its own. At around $40, it's priced fairly for what it delivers. Black Barrel proves that the biggest name in Irish whiskey still knows how to craft something worth savoring when it tries. 9. The Irishman Founder's Reserve. The Irishman Founder's Reserve doesn't scream for attention. The bottle is understated, the label refined, and the liquid inside golden amber. This is whiskey that lets quality do the talking. The aroma hits with honey, vanilla, and orchard fruits, backed by a subtle oakiness that suggests proper aging. On the tongue, it's beautifully balanced. Light caramel sweetness, green apple, pear, and a gentle spice that builds slowly. The texture is silky, the kind of mouthfeel that makes you slow down and pay attention. The finish is clean and warming, with oak and spice lingering pleasantly without overstaying. What makes Founder's Reserve special is restraint. In a market crowded with gimmicky finishes and flavor bombs, this whiskey trusts traditional Irish craftsmanship. It's a blend of single malt and pot still whiskeys, aged in bourbon barrels and bottled without fuss. The result is elegant, refined, and deeply satisfying. There's complexity here if you look for it. Layers of fruit, malt, and oak unfolding with each sip. But it never demands attention, never shouts, just quietly rewards anyone who takes the time to appreciate it. The Irishman brand represents Bernard and Rosemary Walsh's vision for what Irish whiskey should be: accessible premium quality. Founder's Reserve hits that sweet spot beautifully, offering sophistication without pretension. It's the whiskey you'd pour for someone transitioning from Jameson to something better, proving that Irish whiskey can be smooth and interesting simultaneously. At around $50, it delivers value that bottles twice its price struggle to match. The Irishman Founder's Reserve earns its spot here by remembering that sometimes the best statement is understated excellence. 8. Bushmills Black Bush. Bushmills? Black Bush has been quietly over-delivering for decades, while flashier bottles grabbed headlines. This is Northern Ireland's gift to Irish whiskey lovers who value substance over style. The nose opens rich and inviting. Dark fruit, sherry sweetness, vanilla, and toasted nuts create an aromatic complexity that standard Bushmills never approaches. On the palate, it's a revelation. Dried fruit, toffee, chocolate, and baking spice dance together in beautiful harmony. The sherry cask influence is obvious but not overwhelming, adding depth without dominating the underlying whiskey character. The finish is long, warming, and satisfying, with traces of oak, spice, and dark fruit that linger like a good conversation. What sets Black Bush apart is the sherry cask maturation. A significant portion of the blend ages in Oloroso sherry casks, adding that rich, nutty complexity that makes it feel premium without the premium price. The malt-to-grain ratio is also higher than standard Bushmills, giving it a fuller body and more character. This is whiskey with backbone, confident enough to stand alone, but versatile enough to shine in cocktails. Drop it into a whiskey sour or Irish coffee, and watch it elevate everything it touches. The value proposition here is stunning. For around $35, Black Bush delivers flavor profiles that bottles twice its price chase and miss. It's the whiskey that makes converts out of skeptics, proving Irish whiskey isn't just about smoothness, but about balance between smooth and interesting. Bushmills. Black Bush sits comfortably in the top half because it respects both tradition and your palate. It's not trying to reinvent whiskey, just perfect it. And in that perfection lies its power. 7. Redbreast. 12-year. Redbreast. 12 year is where Irish whiskey gets serious. This single pot still expression represents everything that made Irish whiskey legendary before the world nearly forgot about it. The nose alone is worth the price of admission. Orchard fruits, honey, toasted oak, vanilla, and a subtle spice that hints at the magic waiting inside. On the palate, Redbreast explodes with flavor. Sweet fruit, nutty malt, sherry influence, cinnamon, and that distinctive pot still oiliness that coats your tongue in the best possible way. The finish is incredibly long, warming your chest while leaving traces of spice, oak, and dried fruit that make you immediately want another sip. What makes Redbreast special is authenticity. This is pure single pot still whiskey, made from a mash of malted and unmalted barley, triple distilled, and aged in bourbon and sherry casks. The result is whiskey with a character so distinct, so unapologetically Irish, that one sip transports you to the distillery. There's no hiding behind smoothness here, no playing it safe. Redbreast 12. Year has opinions, texture, and personality that demands respect. The sherry cask influence adds layers without overwhelming the pot still character. You get that beautiful marriage of fruit, spice, and oak that only comes from patient aging and quality wood. This isn't whiskey for casual sipping while scrolling your phone. It's whiskey that makes you put the phone down, sit back, and pay attention. At around $65, it's an investment, but one that pays dividends with every pour. Redbreast 12 year earns its spot in the top tier by proving that Irish whiskey tradition, when honored properly, creates something bourbon and Scotch can't touch. It's Dublin in a bottle, and it's magnificent. 6. Green Spot. Green Spot is Irish whiskey royalty hiding in plain sight. Part of the historic Spot range, it represents the Mitchell family's legacy of bonding whiskey, a tradition stretching back to the 1800s. The nose is instantly captivating. Fresh orchard fruit, vanilla cream, honeyed sweetness, and a delicate floral note that feels almost spring-like. On the tongue, it's a masterclass in balance. Apple, pear, barley sweetness, light oak, and subtle spice create layers that unfold beautifully. The mouthfeel is creamy yet vibrant, coating your palate without feeling heavy. The finish is clean, medium long, with fruit and spice fading gracefully. What makes Green Spot exceptional is purity of expression. This is single pot, still whiskey aged in bourbon, sherry, and Malaga wine casks, creating complexity through thoughtful cask selection rather than gimmicks. Each cask type contributes something essential. Bourbon adds vanilla and sweetness. Sherry brings dried fruit and nuts. Malaga contributes a unique wine character. The result is whiskey that tastes alive, vibrant, and endlessly interesting. No two sips feel exactly the same as the flavors shift and evolve. Green Spot also represents accessibility done right. At around $55, it's priced below many inferior whiskeys while delivering flavor that challenges bottles twice its cost. It's approachable enough for someone new to Irish whiskey, yet complex enough to satisfy serious enthusiasts. That rare combination is what makes it so beloved. Whether you're sipping it neat, adding a drop of water to open it up, or building a premium cocktail, Green Spot performs beautifully. It's whiskey that respects your intelligence, trusts your palate, and rewards your attention. In a world of overhyped bottles, Green Spot earns every bit of its reputation through honest, exceptional quality. 5. Powers John's. Lane Release. Powers. John's Lane Release is a love letter to Dublin's whiskey-making heritage. Named after the original distillery location, this single pot still expression captures the bold, spicy character that once defined Irish whiskey before smoothness became the obsession. The nose is assertive. Pot still spice, honey, toasted oak, orchard fruit, and a peppery kick that announces serious whiskey ahead. On the palate, it's a controlled explosion. Rich barley sweetness, cinnamon heat, nutmeg, dark fruit, toffee, and that signature pot still oiliness that creates incredible texture. The finish is long, warming, and complex, with waves of spice and oak that keep evolving. What sets John's Lane apart is his unapologetic boldness. While many Irish whiskeys chase smoothness at all costs, Powers embraces character. This whiskey has opinions, edges, and a personality that demands you pay attention. The pot still spice is front and center, backed by 12 to 13 years of aging in bourbon and sherry casks. The sherry influence adds depth without softening the spice, creating a beautiful tension between sweet and heat that keeps your palate engaged. The mouthfeel deserves special mention. Thick, almost chewy, coating every surface of your mouth with flavor. This is whiskey with presence, the kind that makes you slow down and savor every drop. At around $70, it's positioned as premium, but the quality justifies the price. Powers John's Lane isn't for everyone. It's for drinkers who've graduated from smooth and safe, who want whiskey with backbone and soul. It's proof that Irish whiskey can be both refined and fierce, elegant and assertive. This is Dublin distilling at its finest, uncompromising and unforgettable. 4. Middleton Very Rare. Very Rare is Irish whiskey's annual masterpiece. Released every autumn since 1984, each vintage represents master distiller Barry Crockett's, or more recently Brian Nation's, vision of perfection for that year. The nose is sophisticated and inviting. Vanilla, honey, tropical fruit, toasted oak, and subtle spice create an aromatic complexity that hints at the luxury waiting inside. On the palate, it's exquisite, silky smooth, yet richly flavored, with layers of fruit, cream, spice, and oak unfolding in perfect sequence. The finish is exceptionally long, elegant, and warming, leaving you with traces of vanilla, fruit, and oak that seem to last forever. What makes Middleton Very Rare special is the selection process. Only the finest pot still and grain whiskeys from Middleton's vast warehouses make it into each year's blend. The result is whiskey that showcases Irish craftsmanship at the highest level. There's a refinement here that other bottles aspire to, but rarely achieve. Every element feels intentional, balanced, and perfectly integrated. The smoothness is legendary, but unlike lesser whiskeys, it doesn't come at the expense of flavor. This is proof that smooth and complex can coexist beautifully. The price reflects the quality. Expect to pay around $160 or more, depending on vintage. That puts it firmly in luxury territory, but serious Irish whiskey fans consider it worth every penny. Middleton. Very Rare isn't everyday whiskey. It's celebration whiskey, the bottle you open for life's significant moments. Each vintage varies slightly, making vertical tastings fascinating explorations of how Irish whiskey can express itself differently year to year while maintaining exceptional quality. Middleton Very Rare earns its spot near the top by representing Irish whiskey at its most refined, elegant, and uncompromising. This is what mastery tastes like. 3. Redbreast 21 Year. If Redbreast 12 Year is where Irish whiskey gets serious, Redbreast 21 Year is where it becomes transcendent. This single pot is still whiskey aged to perfection, spending over 2 decades in bourbon and sherry casks before emerging as liquid gold. The nose is intoxicating. Rich sherry fruit, honey, vanilla, toasted oak, Christmas spices, and that signature pot, still complexity create an aroma so inviting you could spend 10 minutes just nosing the glass. On the palate, it's a symphony. Dark fruit, toffee, chocolate, nutmeg, cinnamon, dried fruit, and deep oak create layers upon layers of flavor. The mouthfeel is luxurious, coating your tongue with an oily richness that makes every sip feel indulgent. The finish goes on forever, warming your entire chest while leaving traces of spice, fruit, and oak that evolve for minutes after swallowing. What makes Redbreast 21 Year exceptional is patience. 21 years in oak allows the whiskey to develop complexity that younger expressions can only dream about. The sherry cask influence is profound but perfectly integrated, adding richness without overwhelming the pot-still character. There's a depth here, a gravitas that comes from time and quality wood working together. Every sip reveals something new. A flash of spice, a hint of fruit, a whisper of oak. It's whiskey that rewards contemplation, inviting you to sit, sip slowly, and let it unfold. At around $250, Redbreast 21 Year is expensive, but compared to aged Scotch or bourbon at similar price points, it delivers equivalent or superior quality. This is whiskey for collectors, connoisseurs, and anyone who wants to taste Irish whiskey at its absolute peak. It's not for mixing, not for parties, not for casual sipping. It's for those quiet moments when you want to be reminded why whiskey matters, why tradition matters, why craftsmanship matters. Redbreast, 21 year, is proof that when Irish distillers take their time and trust the process, they create magic that few spirits can match. 2. Yellow Spot. Yellow Spot represents the pinnacle of the spot range, and arguably the pinnacle of accessible luxury in Irish whiskey. While Green Spot charms, Yellow Spot mesmerizes. Age 12 years. In bourbon, sherry, and Malaga wine casks, with an additional component aged in Spanish oak, its pot still whiskey firing on all cylinders. The nose is breathtaking. Honey, vanilla, tropical fruit, toasted oak, sweet wine notes, and the distinctive pot still spice create an aromatic profile so complex you could get lost in it. On the palate, it's a revelation. Sweet fruit, honeycomb, butterscotch, cinnamon, nutmeg, dark chocolate, and oak create a flavor profile that feels impossibly rich yet perfectly balanced. The mouthfeel is creamy and luxurious, coating your entire palate. The finish is extraordinarily long, with waves of spice, fruit, and oak that keep evolving and revealing new dimensions. What makes Yellow Spot so special is the magic of multiple cask types working in harmony. The bourbon casks provide vanilla sweetness and structure. The sherry adds dried fruit and nutty complexity. The Malaga brings unique wine characteristics and a subtle sweetness. Together, they create something greater than the sum of their parts. This is whiskey that tastes expensive because it is expensive, but not in a showy way. The luxury here is quiet, confident, and earned through exceptional quality. At around $130, Yellow Spot occupies that rare space where price and quality align perfectly. It's expensive enough to feel special, but not so expensive that you're afraid to open it. This is whiskey for marking occasions, for sharing with people who appreciate quality, for those evenings when you want to taste something truly exceptional. Yellow Spot isn't trying to be the best Irish whiskey ever made. It's just quietly being one of them, bottle after perfect bottle. It ranks second because only one Irish whiskey manages to be even more spectacular, and that's saying everything. 1. Middleton Dare Gaelach. Some whiskeys are good, some are great. And then there's Middleton Dare Gaelach, which exists in a category of its own. The name translates to Irish oak, and that tells you everything about what makes this whiskey revolutionary. While virtually all Irish whiskey ages in American oak or European oak casks, Dare Gaelach is finished in virgin Irish oak from forests in Ireland. The result is whiskey unlike anything else in the Irish canon. The nose is profound. Honey, vanilla, rich oak, spice, orchard fruit, and something distinctly forest-like, almost earthy, create an aromatic complexity that feels primal. On the palate, it's transcendent. Waves of honeyed sweetness, intense oak influence, baking spices, dried fruit, chocolate, and that unique Irish oak character that tastes like Ireland's countryside distilled into liquid. The mouthfeel is incredibly rich, almost chewy, coating your mouth with flavor. The finish is endless, warming your entire body while leaving traces of spice, fruit, and oak that seem to last for hours. What makes Dare Gaelach the best Irish whiskey isn't just quality, though the quality is exceptional. It's vision. Using Irish oak connects the whiskey to Irish soil in a way no other expression can match. The trees come from estates like Grinzel, Blennerhassett, and Ballykilcavan, each contributing unique characteristics. The result is whiskey that tastes unmistakably Irish, not because of triple distillation or smooth finish, but because the land itself is literally in the glass. This is terroir-driven whiskey, proving Irish distillers can innovate while honoring tradition. Each release is a limited batch, making bottles difficult to find and expensive when you do. Expect to pay $300 or more, and consider yourself lucky if you find it at that price. But for serious Irish whiskey collectors, Dare Gaelach represents the pinnacle. It's what happens when master distillers have unlimited resources, complete creative freedom, and a reverence for Irish heritage. Every sip feels historic, important, and profoundly delicious. This isn't just the best Irish whiskey you can buy today. It's proof that Irish whiskey's future is as bright as its storied past. Middleton Dare Gaelach takes the crown because it earned it. Barrel by barrel, bottle by bottle, pour by pour. And there you have it. 15 Irish whiskies ranked from forgettable to unforgettable. From bottom-shelf disappointments coasting on shamrock imagery to liquid masterpieces that prove Ireland still knows how to distill magic. The range is stunning. The gap between Kilbeggan and Dair Ghailach isn't just quality, it's philosophy. Some brands chase smoothness at all costs, stripping away character in pursuit of universal appeal. Others embrace tradition, trust craftsmanship, and create whiskies that reward attention rather than demand approval. The best Irish whiskies aren't the smoothest. They're the ones that balance smooth with interesting, accessible with complex, tradition with innovation. So, which bottle deserves your next pour? Drop your favorite in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep this conversation going. Slánta.